Update 1.3 is shaping up to be an absolute game changer for ARMA Reforger. It's heading our way very soon, and Steam users have already had the chance to experience it early through ARMA Experimental. So sit down, strap in, and hold on to your hats as I bring you all the latest features we can look forward to in the near future. What's up gamers? Update 1.3 is on its way to shake things up in ARMA Reforger, and it's jam-packed with a ton of features. Some of you may have also caught the recent Q&A session with the devs, where they dropped some pretty exciting info about the game, as well as answering some of your burning questions. And guess what? They also dropped some awesome news for all you PlayStation users out there. If you did miss this, then fear not, because Japesbro did an amazing job in one of his most recent videos, breaking down the Q&A session and everything you need to know. I'll leave a link to his video and his channel in the description below. He also puts out some incredible ARMA gameplay content, so if you're into that, make sure to go and check him out, show him some love and show him some support. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, Steam users have had the chance to access these features early through the likes of ARMA Reforger Experimental, which, to be honest with you, I didn't even realise I had in my library until this week. So whilst I'm a little bit late to the party sharing this with you all, I am here nonetheless. Now, I'm not going to go into every single feature in the update since, as you can see, there is a lot to cover. Instead, I'm just going to go through and highlight some of the big additions and the things that I'm most excited about. And don't worry, I won't dive too deep into each one so I don't spoil all the fun for you guys. So with that said, let's kick things off with the two brand new armoured vehicles. BDRM for the Russians and the LAV for the US. We'll start with the LAV, which has room for a driver, commander, gunner and several passengers. The LAV is a solid vehicle, but when you're driving in first person, visibility is going to be a bloody nightmare in this. You're pretty much blind unless you've got a solid commander guiding you, or you use the new turnout feature. This lets you pop your head out the hatch to get a better view, but it comes with its risks, especially if enemies are nearby. It's a really cool feature, but you'll need to weigh up the risk of exposure versus the benefit of better situational awareness. In the command seat, you can also expect to use the turnout feature to spot things for your driver, which is great for teamwork, but once again it comes with those risks of putting yourself out there for enemy fire. So it's all about balancing risk and reward. As for the gunner, you've got two weapon options, the hefty M242, which is great for taking out vehicles and infantry, and the M240, a lighter machine gun that's perfect for suppressing enemies or just laying down some cover fire. Moving on to the BDRM for the Russians, which although it may be lacking in size compared to the LAV, it makes up for with some features that the LAV doesn't have. For one, the driver has the option to open the hatch and see out the window while driving, which is pretty handy. And of course, if you still want to use the turnout function, that's an option too, so you've got some more flexibility depending on the situation. In the command seat, it's very much similar to the LAV with the option to turn out, but the BDRM2 adds a nice little extra that you can activate a searchlight at night, and this can be super useful for spotting enemies or illuminating dark areas when you're on night ops. It's a small touch that can make a big difference when you're trying to get eyes on the battlefield in the dark. As for the gunner, there are two solid options, the 7.62 PKMT machine gun and the heavier 14.5 KPVT gun. The PKMT is perfect for general suppression and taking out infantry, while the KPVT is more of a beast when it comes to engaging vehicles or heavier targets. You've got a good balance here depending on what kind of fight you get into. Both the LAV and the BDRM are amphibious, so they can hit the water if needed, but I do recommend avoiding it unless you're okay with being a sitting duck. You're pretty vulnerable out there, so unless it's absolutely necessary, I do recommend staying on dry land. And in addition to the vehicles, we've also got some new uniforms for the crew members, so you can get your Barbie on and deck out the US and your Russian teams, but we'll dive into the whole Barbie thing a bit later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. Next up, we have a feature that has made a lot of people happy, the addition of mortar emplacements for all factions. This is a game changer for anyone who loves providing heavy support from the back lines and raining hell from the skies. With the new emplacements, you'll find a small arsenal stocked with a variety of mortars, including HE, illumination, smoke, and even some training dummies for practice. So whether you're laying down support fire, marking targets, or just messing around with dummy rounds, you've got a bunch of options. There's also a mortar box handy nearby where you can store your mortars, keeping everything organised and ready for action. And to help you dial in your shots, you'll also have access to a ballistic cheat sheet, and it's got everything you need like flight time, ranges, mills and much more. So you can really fine tune your shots and make sure your mortars are landing exactly where you want them to. This edition really opens up new tactical possibilities, and it gives players much more control over artillery support, which is pretty awesome to see. And if you're someone who loves to play God in GM mode, you're also in for a treat. Along with the player controlled mortars, there's now the option to call in mortar barrages. You can go from everything from a single round to massive large scale mortar strikes. So whether you're looking to target a specific spot or lay down some serious firepower, it's all at your fingertips. And it doesn't stop there. Smoke and illumination rounds are also available, so you can create even more immersion and atmosphere for your next operation. Whether you're covering your team's movement or lighting up the battlefield for an attack, these rounds are perfect for adding that extra layer of realism. And if they think that they can hide in the forest from you, you'll be able to flush them out just like this. Yep, that's right, trees are now destructible. Gone are the days of getting a BTR stuck on a tiny twig in the middle of the forest. Now when you drive through the forest, you can actually smash through trees and clear a path. Of course, driving head on into a tree will still mess up your vehicle and it will still mess you up inside, but at least now you won't be able to be completely stopped by a single branch. It makes navigating through those dense forests much smoother. That being said, I do think that this feature could use a little more polish, and the animation for the tree destruction does feel a little bit janky in my opinion, but honestly, I'd much rather have it this way than dealing with those immovable trees we had before. It's definitely a step in the right direction. And if you thought the tree destruction was exciting, wait until you see the fully destructible buildings. That's right, every building in the game can now be brought down in a variety of ways. I'm really stoked to see this feature, although it's not exactly how I expected. For all the Battlefield veterans out there who remember the awesome destructible environments like blowing a hole in a wall with an RPG, ARMA Reforger does it a little bit differently, and instead of progressive destruction, where you slowly tear a building apart, it's more as if the building has a health bar, and once it hits 0, the whole thing just collapses in on itself. It's a cool system, but I do think it could use a little refinement, and it would be awesome to see a bit more dynamic destruction, like how parts of the building could just crumble over time, rather than just all falling down at once. But I'm definitely not complaining, it's still a huge step up, and I'm definitely looking forward to leveling some buildings. One thing I really enjoy is the camera shake effect that happens when you're close to a building after it collapses. It adds a nice touch of immersion and makes everything feel that much more intense. So far, I've managed to bring buildings down with RPGs, although it does take a hell of a lot of them. Mortars, AT mines, and get this, gunships. That's right, you can really bring the firepower and watch those buildings crumble with the brand new gunships. Both the UH-1 and Mi-8 gunships have officially been added, bringing some serious firepower from the skies. Both of these helis are packing heat, and I can't wait to see them in action. The UH-1 comes with 14 rocket pods that allows you to choose between HE or HEDP rockets, so you've got some flexibility depending on what you're targeting. You've also got a new aiming sight which includes elevation details, allowing you to adjust your aim for better accuracy, and this is both for the UH-1 and Mi-8, so pilots have a bit more control and precision when engaging targets from above. Speaking of the Mi-8, this one's a beast. It's got a massive 96 rocket slot, and you can fire 24 rockets in one shot. As for the Russian pilot, you'll also get an additional iron sight for aiming, plus a sun filter to help with glare when you're flying in bright conditions. It's a nice little addition to make sure you can keep your shots on target, even in tough lighting. On top of this, helipads aren't just for refueling anymore, you can now resupply ammo on them as well, which is going to be a game changer for those long, intense operations. I'm seriously excited to see these two helicopters in action, especially with some of the more skilled players at the helm, and the potential of some epic aerial support is huge, and I can't wait to watch the chaos unfold. Remember how I was talking about the Barbie players earlier? Well, this is a feature that I think will please a lot of players. There's now a tiered rank system for certain weapons and loadouts, which means that new players can't just spawn in, pick a loadout that costs a ridiculous amount of supplies only to lose it 5 seconds later. Instead, they'll actually have to earn their gear by putting in some work and leveling up before they can access those more expensive items. It's a great way to ensure that players actually contribute towards the team, rather than just rolling in and picking what they want straight away. What's even better is that the little grubs that go around team killing on purpose won't even be able to access the arsenal if they get the Renegade rank. This is a huge win for keeping things fair and making sure that those players who are there just to mess around and ruin the game can't just keep accessing weapons. There's also a pretty interesting change coming when it comes to disguises. Apparently, the game will now recognise when a player is disguised as an enemy. So if a teammate kills someone who is disguised as an enemy, they won't be punished for it anymore. But here's where it gets a little bit tricky. There is mention that if a player kills an enemy disguised as a friendly, then they will be punished. I'm not really sure how I feel about this or if I'm misunderstanding it, but to me that just doesn't seem really fair. If you're killing someone that's pretending to be on your team, shouldn't that be the right call? Hopefully I've got this wrong and I've just misunderstood, but let me know what you think about this change in the comments below. And finally, there are a bunch of smaller features coming our way. Here's what we can expect. Razor wire will now actually hurt you. It will shred you up pretty bad if you're not careful, so be sure not to walk straight through it. Personal belongings for all characters. Each character now has a set of personal items and an ID badge on their person, which contains unique information. This is going to be great for those missions where you need to do search and rescue, or take out high value targets. A new hand slot has been added to the inventory, so that when all other slots are full, items will default to the hand slot, allowing you to carry an extra item. Differences between the US and Russian protractors have now been added to the map. New animations have been added for gunners entering vehicles. You'll now notice much smoother transitions when they're getting in. Ballistic placement has been reworked, so shots now have a much more significant impact based on where they land, adding much more realism. Backblast has now been added to the lore and RPG, so make sure you watch out behind you when firing, and make sure not to walk behind anyone firing a rocket. GMs can now drop flares and smoke, useful for signalling and creating cover. A whole bunch of AI improvements have also been added. You can now order AI to call in mortar strikes, although I did have a lot of trouble getting this to work, so if anyone knows a fix, please let me know in the comments below. And finally, GMs can now place minefields. There's a variety of sizes to choose from, giving you more control over tactical setups. There are also numerous other bug fixes and improvements that I haven't touched on here, but these are some of the major highlights I'm most excited about. I'm not sure when this update will be ready, though I know there have already been several patch updates to fix some of the issues that came up during the experimental phase. From my experience, everything I've tested out worked really well so far, and I think that this update will bring a whole new layer of depth to an already amazing game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching as always, keep it crispy, and I'll see you soon.